welcome everybody to this week's edition of the International Cannabis Conversation. My name is Chris Day, your host for this tour around the global cannabis markets. I really wanted to thank everybody. We're approaching almost a year of doing this show. Trichomes.com has been great in giving us this platform, and it's been wonderful through the Global Cannabis Network Collective to be a part of it. Before we dive into today's program, I wanted to acknowledge the last year has been a little bit rocky for a lot of people in a lot of places, and I've noticed recently that in those areas where they can, live events are starting to come back. So I wanted to give a quick plug to Expo Cannabis coming up September 15th through 17th in Cartagena, Colombia, and also MJ BizCon, which will be in Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States, October 19th through 22nd. Admittedly, two great GCNC Event Network partners, but for those who are able and can attend, don't forget that while these virtual tours are always great, it's also wonderful to be able to connect safely with people in person to help further the global cannabis markets. Now, moving on to today's show, I want to welcome James Storie-Pugh and Neil Tunbridge, co-founders of Mellow out of the UK, a great platform really helping to educate, inform, and provide products in the CBD space to consumers around the world. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having us, Chris. It's an absolute pleasure. Hope we didn't get you out of bed too early.
No, not at all. It is fun. Yesterday, I was recording an episode that's coming out a little bit later out of Australia, and that one was particularly difficult to get the time zones correctly. But, looking at Europe and the UK in particular, it's always pretty easy for us. I get to drink my coffee, and you guys get to head to happy hour afterwards. So,
that's it. G&T's nearly on the way, Chris. Nearly on the way.
We're getting there. So, guys, if you don't mind, I always like to start by just having you tell a little bit about, especially with partnerships, how you guys came together to form Mellow. What sort of is the origin story of the company and your backgrounds to bring it all together?
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. I mean, luckily Neil and I have spent a lot of time working internationally. I'm very much entrenched in the kind of online, digital marketplace, retail models in various kind of guises, shapes and forms. I myself worked in Paris for 10 years and then in New York for 5 years, and I came back to the UK in 2015. It coincided with Neil's arrival back in the UK from being abroad, and we were lucky enough, as cliche as it sounds, we met at an event across a crowded room, and we started this just like, at the time, marketplaces as a retail model were beginning to slowly kind of gain prominence above and beyond Amazon and eBay. People were talking more about how do I, as a brand or retailer, kind of optimize my routes to market by leveraging this kind of relatively new kind of retail structure. So we thought, well, actually, there's clearly a business opportunity here. So we set up a small agency, knocked on a few virtual doors, kind of got a few marketplace clients globally, and actually started sourcing brands and retails for now 18 marketplaces globally, and that's kind of all product verticals. In the US, you probably know Target, Walmart, Newegg, all clients for our agency business. Out of that kind of love of marketplaces as a retail model, we spent a lot of time on the West Coast in the US, saw the rise of CBD in 2016, 2017, and just felt that actually this could be a great opportunity to maybe mix this kind of growth vertical, this growth product vertical, but also the retail technology that is a marketplace. So we came back to UK early 2018, had a few conversations. CBD wasn't even really the subject matter back in those days, but very, very limited. So we actually raised a bit of money, and then started building Mellow as a marketplace, and that's how it all kicked off.
Yeah, I guess to add to that, Chris, James makes it sound like it was a kind of romantic meeting, views across the crowd. But I think I was chairing or moderating a panel when he was heckling me from the audience or something. But so it's probably exactly. I think also just might be worth adding, not that I'm trying to sort of boost our CVs, but we're not between the two of us, we're not sort of complete novices when it comes to marketplaces. My time in the Middle East was spent building up and then exiting a marketplace, and James historically also worked at one of the large French unicorns. So having gained the experience within our own agency, and also previous to that, both lived internationally and undertaken cross-border e-commerce for quite a few sort of years across both our kind of collective CVs, then we do come at this certainly from an angle of, first of all, how do we build a marketplace and scale it? Secondly, how do we encourage cross-border international e-commerce for CBD and hemp wellness brands into the UK and European markets? And I guess thirdly, what tools can we put in place to make that journey as easy as possible for those brands that want to come to these markets, whether that be onboarding, store setup, warehousing, digital marketing, all these things are kind of in a way out the box for brands that are selling on Mellow. But we know there are also significant barriers to entry. So when we were building Mellow and designing it, we were also adding on functionality that we knew typically is a headache or a problem for companies that are looking to sell abroad.
Yeah, I've noticed as I've talked to brands around the world, there's the idea in the product, and if they have a good product that's well tested and consistent, they probably have that team on the science end, but they may not have the delivery vehicle, right? They may not understand the legal frameworks available to them in various parts of the world. And I know you're not just focused on European markets, but you also have a fairly decent platform in Asia, which has been something that I think has been difficult for many people to get their heads around. Maybe talk a little bit about what you've got going on over there. We'll certainly circle back to the European markets, but I want to make sure we cover that because I do think that's a fairly unique aspect of what you're doing, is that global stretch.
Yeah, it's true, Chris. I think out of what's fundamentally Mellow the marketplace, we realised that through conversations with the larger CBD brands in the US and the UK, there was definitely an appetite for markets further afield than just Europe. And we've done enough work in China over the years to understand that actually to access the China and the wider Asian markets, it's just, one, it's not a quick win, and two, it's undoable without a partner in the region who you can genuinely trust and have confidence in. And we've all had experiences of brands who have tried to sell into China and then kind of lost their shirts over maybe choosing the wrong partner in that respect. And no disrespect to the Asians or the Chinese in any way, shape or form, but it's such a complicated market that it took us seven or 8 months to go through and vet 4 or 5 potential partners until we chose the right one, a company called eCargo, who are a publicly listed company in Australia, who have been based in Hong Kong for 12 years and have a very strong track record in cross-border e-commerce into the region. So they work with brands, from Mars right through to La Perla, right through to other kind of FMCG brands. They really understand that route to market. I mean, it's felt actually that was really a match made in heaven, with us sitting here as a brand facing business in the UK and US, and they were doing the operational and the functional components of accessing that market. We were able to source the right brands and build out our multi-brand marketplace stores on. We did JD and Tmall Global in China. We've also done Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan, plus a bit of cross-border into Australia. And we just signed the JV into India that we're kicking off in Q4. Yeah, admittedly, there kind of always challenges along those journeys, Chris. I think as you're aware, and China government has recently shut down cross-border CBD. However, I heard just today that actually the 1st of October will be when they reopen the market, which is exceptionally exciting for us, considering the time and effort we've put into that project. But we just felt that the ability to have a relatively first mover advantage in such a market with such phenomenal potential could be a game changer. And we know that the brands are looking for a new kind of virgin market, and we just felt that access to those markets gave us another string to our bow that could be very valuable from a business perspective, but also from an investor perspective as well.
Yeah, so my understanding of the Mellow model is you guys really are focused on creating the technology platform that allows this to happen, and then creating the joint ventures to deliver credible, reliable products in each of these markets. Is that accurate in probably an oversimplified form?
Yeah. It's exactly that, Chris. I think we positioned ourselves more as a kind of retail, a kind of global retail technology company, working in the CBD space, giving brands a one-stop shop. Makes it sound a little bit simplified, but fundamentally having routes to market, leveraging not only our operational knowledge of a marketplace, but understanding how you can use marketplaces as stepping stones into new virgin markets. So, for example, if you're looking at China, there is no kind of direct consumer e-com. It's minimal. You have to leverage an existing marketplace, Alibaba or JD.com. So we've taken our experience from the past and realised actually the quicker route to market is to build these multi-brand stores on existing marketplaces to gain market share. So for in India, we're working with Flipkart, Snapdeal, Tata Click as our first 3 key marketplaces in India to gain a bit of traction, a bit of brand awareness for our clients. And then off the back of that, we're launching kind of Mellow Asia as a standalone e-com operation across Asia. So yeah, to your point, Chris, it really is leveraging technology as a route to market, speed to market, and fundamentally minimizing the required investment for brands to kind of dip their toe into these waters.
Yeah, and to participate. And I guess, Neil, on the store, so people, if you wanna visit, it's mellow.store. And when you're there, I noticed there's a lot of information and education trying to help people understand what CBD is, how it works, how they can expect. But how do you guys go about vetting products to make sure that what is on the platform does deliver, is reliable, is something that people can actually trust?
Yeah, you kind of hit the home run in terms of a question straight away, Chris. That there's kind of several processes that we go through. So first of all, I guess brands need to understand that this is I wouldn't go as far as to say an invite-only platform, but it's definitely a curated selection of brands. And the reason we do that is for several purposes. First of all, the brand has to fit the requirements of Mellow from a product and a product category perspective. So we don't just onboard more and more tincture brands just because they're available. There needs to be a product market fit for every single brand that's on the site, and they need to be fulfilling category gaps that we have, whether that's female wellness, sexual wellness, sleep focused products, anxiety focused, whatever it might be. So the products of the brands need to be fulfilling a search criteria, I guess, from a consumer. Secondly, we do have this curated aspect to the platform. So the brands also need to go through a fairly lengthy KYC process. So we understand as much as we can about the brands, the people that operate the brands, the financing background of the brands. So it's a banking level KYC process. Once the brands go through that process, there's also several questions around how the business operates. So we're increasingly trying to understand their business footprint. Do they have an ESG strategy, for instance? Is the packaging that they use recycled or recyclable? Are they putting extra products into the supply chain unnecessarily? And then to another extent, we're also doing background checks on the businesses. Not that we're trying to be Big Brother, but what we're trying to position Mellow as is the most trusted source of global CBD brands for consumers to come and shop through. So we have a tool that runs in the background that's a specific marketplace business verification tool called Detected. Detected runs monthly background checks on every single one of our sellers. We have a dashboard that we can see to make sure the businesses are, for instance, not gone into liquidation, and that they have all of the right business administration processes in place, from paying, for instance, in the UK we have something called VAT, akin to your kind of sales tax, making sure they're up to date with their VAT payments, for instance, to make sure that none of their directors have county court judgments against them, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to position Mellow as, the most trusted and trustworthy destination for customers to come to. All of the product COAs are listed on the product pages, so as a consumer you can come to Mellow and say, not only are the brands checked, verified, and as a customer I can see that, so I can see the seller verification page on every single product and every single storefront. I can see the COAs, and I can see that as this is a curated offering, Mellow has done all of the background checks that I as a consumer don't have to go and do. So that's really at the heart of what we're trying to build as Mellow as a brand.
Yeah, I think it's great. I have spent so much time, and I'm sure you have too, right? Once you're sort of in the space and people think that you have some level of expertise, and really for me it's funny because I talk to people with the expertise. I don't have all that myself, right? But being able to take in friends' notes and emails saying, hey, where do I go? What do I find this? What is it going to do for me? And with all of the inconsistencies globally around regulation, it's really hard to be able to tell people you can trust this organization and the information there. The information may not be total of what you're looking for, but you can start there. You can get your education there and trust that at least that information has been
getting there. And I think to your point, that's great in that not only is it trust, it's also education. So we go a long way to try and help customers understand CBD. Why? How can they take it? Why can they take it? What can they expect? And why are other people taking it? I think it's an education process, and I think I always say this, but we're well aware that this is very much the tortoise of a tortoise and hare race. We could have gone out there and 500 brands on the site from anywhere around the world and no checks, and just kind of digitally, spew all this information out.
Quantity game.
It doesn't really do anything for the industry. It doesn't really do anything for consumers, and you end up kind of getting, you're not delivering quality. You're not delivering something that's trustworthy. You're not delivering anything that's educational. So we understand our position in the sector. We understand what we're trying to do, and we understand that customers, certainly in the UK, that are not as mature as you guys are in the US in terms of consumption and brand maturity, we've got a job to do.
That's the only part where we're ahead, right? Is on the consumption side. Everybody else seems to be leapfrogging us in terms of figuring out frameworks. As you look on the business side at scalability and where those next markets are that you're pursuing, which of the existing markets are you most excited about? And where else are you looking to expand in the coming months and years? Where do you see that opportunity? James?
I think in terms of excitement, Chris, I think that China and India offer massive potential. That they're very, when you look at what's on offer in those markets, it's almost non-existent, and often it's only locally produced CBD products, which are at best pretty shoddy, worse just a complete rubbish, and therefore the market's so ripe for high quality brands to come in to really establish themselves in those markets. So they're incredibly exciting, and I think they'll offer huge growth potential over the next 3, 4, 5 years. We're also looking very actively into Africa, South Africa again. Markets are very active, not only in the growing space but also in the consumption space from a CBD perspective, but also a medcam perspective. Australia, is very much on our radar. Understandably, it's only OTC in the market at present, but we feel that's going to change at some point in the very near future. We're literally on the cusp, and we have Mellow Asia is ready to go in Australia, and we can ship from Hong Kong straight into the market. So we're literally just waiting for that day. But I think from a European perspective, and coming slightly closer to home, for us the French market is incredibly exciting. At the moment there's a huge kind of untapped potential there. The government's clearly playing around with legislation, kind of blocking the sale of CBD. The rest of Europe is kind of finally understood and moved forward. The French will follow suit. I mean, they're always going to be a little bit kind of bullshit because they are French, in the end of the day. So they've got to do it their own way. But they will come into line at some point. And when that happens, that will be a phenomenal market as well. And that's just really exciting for us as well.
I spent a number of years when I was younger, first as an exchange student, and then after that living a little bit in France. And you're accurate in that they always do have their own approach and their own way to getting there. But I have enjoyed watching the evolution of their pilot project on medicinal cannabis and other things coming along. I think you're right. That's an exciting market for the future. And then, I was half joking about the trials in the United States and regulations. The FDA here just last week rejected again acknowledgement of CBD as being useful for anything to anybody. But I do think eventually they'll come along too. What do you see in the North American market really for Mellow, or just in general, for folks who are trying to create reliable, trusted platforms?
Yeah, I might just begin just by saying that we actually, obviously, Mellow started out in the UK. We've gone UK, Europe, Asia. There's a few other strings to our bow. One thing we are cognizant of is that I know, Chris, you're a bit, I guess, flippant in terms of the framework that you guys have got in the US. But what you are brilliant at is developing fantastic brands. So coming back to one of the other points earlier on about the technology that we have within Mellow, is that we've also set up a division principally aimed at US brands trying to come to UK and Europe. So we've got a division called Grow by Mellow, which is a full cannabis-friendly tech stack business that allows brands to enter UK and European markets. We build and operate direct-to-consumer e-com sites for brands looking to enter those markets. We then have a full suite of digital marketing services that then hang off that. We've got a warehouse that they can put stock into. So I guess for brands looking at global markets, but don't really have the appetite for Asia, Europe and UK is kind of where we see the next stepping stone for brands looking to sort of grow outside of the home market. And then I guess reversing that and coming back to your question is, so what potentially can happen in the US? We see the US as quite an exciting market. We think there's clearly a ton of brands, and I think the general consensus is there's going to be a little bit of consolidation from a brand perspective over the next 18 months to 2 years. Pin the tail on the donkey where you see the sort of point of saturation for brands, but I think everyone's happy to recognise the fact that there's a lot of brands out there. Where that brand saturation point goes and what product area the sector goes towards, I guess is anyone's guess. We see beauty, cosmetics, edibles and drinks as 4 great growth categories in UK and Europe. Certainly that's the search data we've got coming back from Mellow. I don't know whether that mirrors what you guys are doing in the US particularly, but
I think it's pretty close.
Right.
Certainly on the beverages in those categories, I would absolutely agree. Those are the majors.
Yeah.
In looking at that expansion, and I know we could probably talk about specific tactical ways to deploy that for hours, but I'm excited, having spent numerous decades building brands through advertising and agencies and such, to see that next generation of not only legislative frameworks in a lot of places that allow brands to emerge, but also the development of those kind of product attributes that people can start to trust and affiliate. I think that will, over time, really clarify the marketplace in a way that's very hard for people to do now. So, guys, I want to thank you for coming on to the ICC this week. Really appreciate it. To folks listening, absolutely go and check out Mellow.store. James and Neil, co-founders, joined us today out of the UK. So thanks, gentlemen, so much. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in every week to the International Cannabis Conversation.
Absolutely.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Chris.